Okay, great. So we're recording. All right, welcome everybody to tonight's training webinar, The Three Immutable Laws of Buying or Selling, in parentheses, a practice, your practice, or buying somebody else's practice. What I'm going to talk about tonight, frankly, goes both ways. It goes whether you're buying or whether you're selling. And so what you're going to learn tonight, I think in many cases you'll never have heard before, or if you have heard it, it's maybe been glossed over. But I'm going to be bringing you just some real direct, blunt, truthful, just my experience in this. So many of you know a little bit about who I am, and I'll get into that in a second. But suffice it to say, I've got the creds to be sharing this with you tonight. So let's dive in. And Eric, by the way, thank you. I'm glad I'm doing well too. That's a scare that nobody wants to really have. So I'm going to be switching back and forth between a PowerPoint and the visual screen, because you will get bored of seeing me and you will get bored of seeing the PowerPoint. So we're going to pop back and forth. So as we do that, just be patient with any glitches. This is not my, I'm not a techie. I'm kind of a dunce when it comes to these things, but we're going to make it through tonight just fine. So let me head on over here, and I'm going to get this slideshow started. All right, so there are the raw slides. So we'll play it this way. Now, I should be in the upper right-hand corner, so you guys should all be able to see me still. So this is our title introduction here, The Three Immutable Laws of Buying or Selling in Practice. And let's move on to the next slide here. So a little bit about me. As I mentioned, I bought, sold, or started about 20 different companies in the last 2 decades. I quit tracking at like 18, and there's been a couple more since. To include 3 practices in a dental assisting school. And that is an asset you can sell. So if you've ever considered a dental assisting school, people buy them, and they can be a tremendous asset. So I've been through that. I've written about a half dozen books. I think it's more. It's probably like 10 or 12, maybe 13 books. But there's 4 currently on Amazon. I've got another one I'm going to be releasing soon, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. It's going to be based in part on tonight's webinar. It's going to be, I think the title is 33 Immutable Laws of Buying or Selling in Practice. So we're adding about 30 more of these. So some of you know I've been on the stage with folks like Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, Dan Kennedy, Super Bowl champs, Rocky Blyer, and a bunch of others. Heinz Ward, 2 really neat guys. I was fortunate to meet those guys and hang out with them for a little bit. Of note, why people have been wishing me well here on this webinar. 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks and a day ago, I drug myself out of bed, dizzy as all get out. The story's on my blog, so if you're curious, morbid curiosity, and you want to read about it, I've got a lengthy story on my blog about it. And it may be important for you to read it because it might give you some idea of symptoms later on if you're ever faced with such a thing as I was. But I drug myself out of bed, dizzy. I felt like I was back in college and woke up at 4 a.m. after a long bender. It was bad. I just felt horrible. Tremendous amount of weight on my shoulders and my head. I felt like I was being pushed into the ground. I wandered into the shower, and I'll give you the short version. Nobody needs that visual of me in the shower. I passed out in the shower, whacked my head, passed out. My wife heard the racket. Fortunately, we've got a glass shower wall, so I banged off of that, ripped my head open a little bit, which is healed now, fortunately. And my wife came in and revived me, got me going. My kids listened and did exactly what, exactly what she was telling them to do. 911 was called, and I'm out in the country. I live in vineyards and Christmas trees out here, and I'm 30 minutes from a hospital, and I'm 20 minutes from the nearest ambulance getting here. So 25 minutes later, EMT showed up within 15 minutes, and then the ambulance got there about 25 minutes. Long story short, I end up in the ER, and low blood pressure, 20 beats a minute on the heart. I was not doing well, and I found out, by golly, I needed a pacemaker. I'm 47, and I needed a damn pacemaker. Anyway, 2 weeks ago. And so here I am today. I've got my little pacemaker scar. I'm wearing my little pacemaker bracelet. And I'm back in the saddle. But for the grace of God, I made it back. So still get a little, there's some emotional issues that come with these kinds of things. And if you've ever had anything like this, you'll probably understand what I'm saying. But I'm telling you, an interesting journey. And I got the idea for this webinar actually while I was recovering. And I thought, this is something I really need to share with the folks who are affiliated with Jerry Jones Direct on my email list, or customers or clients or whatever. And so it really kind of woke me up. And I thought, I got to share these things because they're really important to you. They're more important to you now than they are to me. I've sold my practice. I'm out of the business of dental care, so to speak, of having that business for the time being. And so, I mean, I've done it. I've started and sold it. And so I've learned some really important lessons, and there's some lessons that I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. So my focus after sitting in the hospital and staring up at the, room and wondering why in the world I was lucky and had such a great wife and family to take care of me. I thought, I've got to change what it is I'm doing. I've got to change my approach, and I've got to change who I'm doing it with. I've got to make some changes. And so the last week, I've made some pretty significant changes. And they're all good. They're all very positive, and I couldn't be happier. But probably the biggest change of all is I really want to take my experience directly to you and help you reach your dreams. I mean, bluntly, that's really what this is all about. So it starts with these 3 laws, and there's actually 4. So we're going to cover 4. Some housekeeping items first. If you don't have your copy yet of The State of Dentistry, go to thestateofdentistry.com and download it. This is a profound 22, 23, 24 page document. It won't take you long to read, but inside it's going to give you some insight that you just can't get anywhere else. And it's not just my thoughts. It's not just my opinions. I gathered the opinions of other experts in the industry, people who are, are living what you're living, and others who are taking advantage of what's happening, others who are still trying to figure out what's happening, but nonetheless, get it. So thestateofdentistry.com if you don't have it. And if you've got it, fantastic. Just make sure you read it and you actually act on what's in there. Next on distractions, if you've got any at all, and I realize we're 10 minutes into this thing already. I didn't realize I was going to choke up so much, but if you have any distractions at all tonight that are going to prevent you from maximizing the value of this training, just choose one. That's all I ask. Me and this training, or whatever is distracting you. Just pick one and stay with it. And that's really, I want you to focus on one thing, and hopefully it's this training. As we go along, I'm going to take some short breaks for questions at the end of each of these segments. You're going to see what I mean here in a bit. There's going to be plenty of time to get your questions answered. I have no time limit tonight. So I plan on getting through these 3 or 4 laws, and then running through some other additional information, an opportunity for you, and then I'm going to answer questions. And I'll stay here as long as there are questions. So let's get started. The 3 immutable laws are right here on your screen. There's deal flow, demonstrated opportunity, integrated systems, and the bonus that I want to talk about is human capital. In other words, the people. So let me pause here for just a second. I want you to write those 4 things down, if you wouldn't mind. Go ahead and write them down. Deal flow, demonstrated opportunity, and integrated systems. Okay, and then the bonus, of course. Write that down as well. All righty, so I want to make sure we don't have any questions in the chat box. See how we're doing there. Okay, good. Everybody's all right. Everybody's all set. So let's keep going. All right, so let's talk about, whoops, went backwards one. Let's talk about the first one, deal flow. Now, this is a clever little slide. That's the emergency room sign there. So a little bit more about this, and then we'll just move on. Sinoatrial node, by the way, it's your natural pacemaker. If everybody's got one, obviously. Mine just decided to give up, so I ended up getting a pacemaker. So anyway, for those of you that joined us late, 2 weeks ago, that's what happened. So, okay, so quiz. That slide probably should have been earlier. That was my fault. So quiz, on a scale of 1 to 20, with 20 being perfect, okay? And 1, which means, Jerry, I've got this, and you're gonna know what that means here in a second. And 1 being, Jerry, I'm in a horrible position. How well prepared do you believe you and your practice are for a sale if you had to sell right now? Now, I want you to write this number down. Scale of 1 to 20. 20 means you feel very confident. You're like, dude, I got this. 15 might be, I'm fairly confident, but there's probably some things I need to do. A 10 is, I'm not confident at all, but I kind of maybe sort of think I've got it. A 5 is, I'm in trouble. And a 1 is, oh shit, I'm in deep trouble. I'm not ready and my practice is not ready. Write that number down. We're going to come back to it later. So does everybody have that number written down? You got it? And if anybody wants to share that in the chat box with me, you can send it to me personally. You can send it directly to the panelists if you'd like. Feel free to send it to me. I'm curious to know where you're at. Okay, so 1 to 20. 20 is the best you can do. Where are you at on your preparedness level to sell? Okay. All right, let's talk about immutable law number 1. This is the deal flow, maximized case flow. Do you have methods, systems in place to maximize deal flow? Why am I not saying new patient flow? Because it isn't just new patient flow. It's existing patient cases as well. So a practice, as you know, isn't just new patient flow. It's cases you're doing from recare, continuing care, cases that are coming from hygiene, cases that you've cross-sold. You know, you've got somebody in the chair and you're delivering a crown that, by golly, it looks like they need an implant, and look at that, you just created another case. So immutable law number 1 is you have to have strong deal flow if you're going to sell a practice. Nobody wants to buy an anemic practice, right? So, you know, this is how folks like investment bankers, appraisers, DSO buyers, true money professionals, when they look at a business, they want to know what the deal flow is like, right? What is the customer flow like? Is it strong? Is it weak? The other thing, I'd go so far as to have you think about this as a black box, right? So think of a black box and pretend you're going to put $1 in that black box. And for every dollar you stick into that black box, how many dollars are going to come out of that? Is it less than $1? So do you have a system that when I put $1 in for advertising, for example, $1.10 is going to come out in 60, 90, 120 days, or $2 is going to come out? You have a black box for new patients, right? A system. Do you have a black box for how your hygienist pushes cases your direction, or your DAs, how they're identifying opportunities with new patient exams and continuing care opportunities? What is that like? Is it strong? Are you, just freaking busy as all get out? If you're not, we're going to talk about that. So it's cross-selling and it's maximizing cases from existing patients. It's new patient flow. Do you have systems? How many methods, the question I've got for you is how many methods do you have right now that are generating new patients? I mean, do you have one way you're generating new patients? Do you have 2, 3, 15, 20? The more, the better. Diversity in this case leads to stability. The more opportunities you have, the better. Deal flow has got to be high in a practice where you want high dollar for it. It's got to be high. Are you relying on PPOs solely? In other words, that's your number one source of new patients or PPOs? If that's the case, that's a problem. That's one. And one of anything in business is bad. One hygienist is bad. One DA is bad. One DA that knows your CERC machine is bad. One front office person is bad. One dentist is bad. One of anything in a dental practice is a bad thing. One Statum, one VAC system. It's why we had redundancies. When I had my practice, everything had a redundancy. We had multiple DAs, multiple hygienists who could move and fill in. We had multiple doctors who could take care of each other. We had multiple front office, multiple everything, multiple Statums, multiple VAC systems. Heck, I even had a compressor that all that had to have happen was we just bolt another, our replacement unit right onto the machine, and we'd be going in literally 15 minutes. So this is the kind of stuff we're looking at. Now, I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 20, how you're doing. What do your case flow systems look like? What kind of deal flow do you have in your practice? So a 20 is, I always have everything I want. 15 is, most of the time I'm okay. 10 is, I have 1 or 2 ways that sometimes it gets done, right? Sometimes gets it done, excuse me. 5, my patient base is old. I lack new patients, and existing patients ain't buying. They're just not buying. And give yourself a 1 if you're stuck and you have no systems. I mean, you're treading water. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. and you're hoping for a Hail Mary. I just talked to a doctor, and unfortunately, I don't think he's on here tonight. He's not. I'm looking at the attendee list. He's not. He should be. 3 new patients a month. He's got a huge debt to pay, and he's 60. It's not a position I envy at all. But the thing is, signs are there. Signs have been there. This isn't a new condition or a new situation. It's kind of like if I think back now on the signs I got about my heart not working properly, my sinoatrial node taking a dump on me, there were signs. So get this, my vision was not sharp. I was complaining about not being able to see and thinking I had to go to the optometrist again. And I was just there last year. I'm 47. I shouldn't be having to get a new prescription every year unless I've got an eye problem, right? I was having cognitive issues. I wasn't able to string a sentence together sometimes or get my thoughts out or even have clear thoughts. Smell, my smell, a sense of smell was muted. Taste, But those big 3, vision, thinking, smell, those were signs. And by golly, guess what? I even went to the cardiologist and had an echo done. And they're like, wow, your heart rate's really low. Wow, your blood pressure's really low. You feeling okay? I'm like, yeah, I feel fine. Well, I felt fine, but I didn't feel great. And I'd had a deterioration of how I felt over a long period of time, and I didn't even notice. And I didn't notice until my blood pressure and my heart rate went back up again. And so this is the same kind of crap that happens in dental practices. It's a slow sort of, withering on the vine. If you look at the aging of America, right? I mean, if we look at a cross section of people and slowly they age, it's like when you don't see anyone for 5 years and all of a sudden you see them, it's like, oh my God, if I aged as much as they have, you go to a class reunion, it's like, yeah, there's no way I look like I've aged that much, right? There's symptoms. You got to pay attention. And this doctor's had symptoms, but he's been asleep at the wheel. And he's either been afraid to take action or he's just been indecisive. I mean, there might be all kinds of reasons. It doesn't really matter what the reasons are at this point. There's awareness now and we've got to do something. So score yourself, rate yourself 1 to 20. Where are you at with maximized case flow, maximized deal flow, really? So it's new patients and it's converting existing patients and getting more out of patients you already have. What does that look like? Do you have good deal flow in your practice? Solid, strong deal flow. Do you have everything you want, right? So rate yourself. 20 is perfect. 1 is I'm stuck, brother. I got some issues. All right. Now, you guys write this down. So you should right now, you could be scoring up to a total of 40 points. 20, if you think your practice is ready to sell, 20 points right off the bat. 20 points from this one. You kind of see where I'm going, right? We might end up with 100 points total. So write your numbers down. I want you to keep track of these, okay? There's plenty of time here to write them down. Now, I'm going to take just a short pause because if you have questions so far about what I've covered, throw them in the webinar chat box or you can do. You can also put them in the Q&A box. There's a couple of options there. And later on, by the way, too, if you want, I'll be happy to give you a chance to, talk. We can talk and chat one-on-one. That's fine too. I can promote you to a panelist, if you will, and we can chat. So any questions so far? I'm not seeing any, but I want to make sure you're writing your numbers down. So you could have a total of 40 points so far. And if you've got a total of 40 points so far, I'm going to be pretty shocked. I'm going to be very proud of you, but I'm going to be pretty shocked. Okay. So let's go on to the second immutable law, which is demonstrated proven opportunity. Or if you're buying, it's a hidden opportunity, right? If you're a buyer, you want to know that there's an opportunity in the thing you're buying, and you want to know, and you need to know how to extract or take advantage of that opportunity. It's kind of like, if you buy a fixer-upper car, a fixer-upper house, or a fixer-upper dental practice, there's got to be opportunity there. In this case, we're talking about selling, and we want to sell a practice that has great opportunity, demonstrated, proven opportunity, because we want there to be obvious upside for a buyer. I'll use my own office as an example. The buyer of that practice had been there for 18 months. And so she knew what was going on in the practice. She knew the opportunity, and she knew where she could take advantage of that opportunity. And I think it was a tremendous one for her. But we didn't keep it a secret where the opportunity was because we wanted her to know. We wanted the buyers to know. So there has to be for you the ability to demonstrate that opportunity for growth. and I'm going to show you how to do that. Talk about it, I guess. Okay. So that's number 2. Immutable law number 2 is demonstrated proven growth. Now, on the screen is a quote. It's a direct quote from dentistrytoday.com. I found it today. I was just kind of curious. I'm like, I wonder if there's anything online that talks about this. And lo and behold, check this out. You can read it, but for our phone-in folks, I'm going to read it for you. Research from the Levin Group Data Center. That's Dr. Roger Levin. I'm sorry if I'm screwing that up. I'm going to go with Levin. So Levin Group Data Center indicates that practices on average lose approximately 15% of their patients per year due to factors such as increased competition and changing insurance plans. This can translate to a conservative estimate of $2 million in lost revenue over the course of a typical dentist's 30-year career. $2 million. Now, if you want to translate that $2 million in revenue to what would go in your pocket, if you're running a 30% net, do the math. That's $600,000 lost. So what does that mean exactly? What does this mean about demonstrated proven growth? Well, quite bluntly, it's pretty significant. So, let me talk a little bit about this first, and then we're going to get into the math and what that looks like. I was talking earlier today to one of my coaches. He's a physician. Some of you might have heard him on a recent webinar with me. His name's Mitch Levin. Great guy. Super smart, retired physician, and very, very successful. And we were talking about this, and I said, Mitch, one of the things I want to talk about in my webinar tonight is this proven growth, demonstrated proven growth, and how most of us, the vast majority in business, don't understand the impact of losing a patient and what it means in relationship to growth. And so, here's what it boils down to. I mean, his comment was, look, physicians, CPAs, attorneys, every professional practice has attrition. And with attrition, achieving a true 10% growth on an annualized basis is damn hard. In other words, if you're losing 15 and you want to grow 10, what do you have to do in growth? You have to do 25%. So look at it like this. Let's say, for example, you have 1,000 patients. Your 1,000 patients, you lose 15%. This is Levin's number, not mine. You lose 15%. That's 150 patients a year lost. Now that's one number. Now let's say through marketing, PPOs or whatever, you're able to add 200 new patients, right? So 200 new patients on a monthly basis, whatever that number is, but you're losing 150. What's your net gain? 50. 5%. So you grew 20% in patient numbers, so you think, but you lost 15. Your net gain is 5. So in a practice where you think you're doing really well, you're not. I mean, you're really not. Unless you are doing above 15%, you're not even breaking even. And that is tough. That's how's that happening? If you're not bringing in, if you're losing 150 patients a year and you're not replacing them with 150 and adding another 150, you're not getting 15% true growth. That's a massive problem. That's why in recare, dentists aren't adding hygienists at the rate they should be. That's why a dentist who's seeing, if you're growing 10% a year, that's another, on 1,000 patients, that's 100 patients a year. If you break that down, that's like 2 new patients a week that have to be seen. That's going to require more labor, right? But doctors aren't adding hygienists at the rate they should be if their practice is truly growing at the rate they think it's growing. So this demonstrated growth is huge. And the bottom line is, instead of growing your retirement, if you think maybe you're growing 15% a year, you're adding 15% new patients a year, and you think you're growing 15% a year. Bottom line is you're not. You're just staying even. You're going stagnant. You're killing your retirement opportunity. Your practice's value is not increasing. It's just not. And that's one of those. That's a tough one for folks to face. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So this demonstrated proven growth. And this goes on. The big idea here is If you can't make a go of it and grow your practice at a rate greater than 15%, 20 to 25% gross, right? So take off the 15, that's a 10, that's a 10 to 15% net growth. How is somebody else going to come in your practice and do that? How is someone else going to come in and see that that's a demonstrated opportunity? If you're growing at 15% a year, you think, and you're losing 15%, you're stagnant. And you're trying to sell a practice that has demonstrated growth. That doesn't work. A smart buyer is going to go, dude, you're not growing. You're just like maintaining. And I want a practice that is on a growth trajectory, not on a stagnant trajectory. Now, as a buyer, I'm an opportunistic buyer. And I say, hey, you're not growing. So I'm going to take a 25% discount on your price. I'm going to lowball you. And that's what's going to happen. If you don't have demonstrated proven growth, if you don't have any one of these things in order, if you just got 2 or 3 and not all 4, you're going to be taking a discount when you go to sell. And the discount can be significant. And it's all bottom line profit dollars. It's not going to go in your pocket. So it's imperative that you've got these 4 mastered, the 4 that we're going to talk about. Okay. Let's see here. Any other thoughts I want to share with you? Yeah. Okay. Here's another aspect of this. Is it if you're on a growth trajectory, is it luck? Is it repeatable? Can you demonstrate and show, hey, this is what we're doing to grow 25% a year? These are the 3 things we do every 6 months to grow, right? Or did you buy a doctor's practice one year and grow 30% just from acquisition? Now, acquisition is a valid way to grow, but it's not repeatable. It's not a repeatable strategy for a solo practitioner. It is a repeatable strategy for a DSO because they're doing it all the time. But for you in a solo practice, selling to another solo practice owner, or selling your share of a multi-group group practice to another, there's got to be demonstrated growth, right? So I look at, when it comes down to it, 25% is ideal. Anything less than 25% gross growth on an annualized basis isn't cutting it. So if you're doing 20% and you're losing 15, you're only growing 5. It's barely covering inflation, folks. Inflation is like 3.4% or 2.9%. It doesn't matter. It's around 3%. And if you're only growing 5, that's a net growth of 2. If you're throwing an inflation number in there, playing with percentages, apples and orange type stuff. So I really want you to think about how am I growing, and is it demonstratable? And can someone else repeat it? And does anybody really want to buy what I can't make work? If you can't make it work, odds are someone else may not be able to or may not want to try. And so when it comes to valuing your practice, this is key. This is just absolutely key. So, if you've had a winning, 25% growth over the last 3 years, so you're netting 10% growth annually over the last 3 years, hallelujah, man, you're smoking it. You are absolutely kicking butt. So now, obviously, I want you to rate yourself. Where are you at in your mind right now? And I want you to be honest. I want you to be blunt, truthful, and honest with yourself. Because, look, nobody else in your sphere, outside of someone like me, is going to be blunt and honest with you. Your team's going to tell you what you want to hear. They're your team. Very few are going to say, hey, doc, we grew 10%. Attrition's 15. That's a -5. What the heck are we going to do now? We've got to crank things up. You got to quit spending money on your mistress. You got to quit doing this. You got to quit. We've got to grow the practice, right? No more expensive cars until we get this baby thrown off 25% growth a year. So that's what I want you thinking about. I want you to be honest with yourself. Give yourself a 20 if you're at 20% or above annually. Frankly, you shouldn't even get 20. If you're at 20% above, I ought to give you 15 points, but I'm going to be generous because I know it's damn hard to do. I know it's hard to do. I've done it and I know it's hard to do. So there's your scores right here. Give yourself a 15 if you're over 15%, but not 20. Frankly, if you're at 15%, remember, according to 11, you're just staying stagnant. And we can get, I can get into the numbers there if you like. So if anybody wants me to get into the numbers, just pop something in the Q&A or the chat box. I'll dig into that 15% and we'll dissect what makes that up. And I think, frankly, he's probably a little low. I really do. Okay, so give yourself a 5 if you're, give yourself a 5 if you're at 5%, but not 10, and give yourself a 1 if you're in no growth mode. Okay. Remember, 15% growth is not great because you're just maintaining. 15% growth in new patients, you're only maintaining. So we want to be far better than that. And keep in mind, when a practice is sold, typically, and you're going to get all sorts of answers, but what I see time and time again prove out is that, the average practice is selling for an average, right? Here we go, average, average, average. I don't want you to be average, but the average practice is selling for an average of 70% of the last 3 years collections. So if you've collected $1 million a year, the last 3 years, your practice is worth $700,000. It's $1 million average, 70% is 700,000. And if you've ever had $700,000 deposited in your bank account, it don't last long. You might think, oh man, I hit the jackpot. It won't last long. If you have no plan for that money, it won't last long. You'll burn through that, faster than a Rastafarian with a big joint. I mean, it'll go quickly. So 700 grand, it isn't that much money. It just is not. And not to mention you're going to pay taxes. We won't get into taxes, but there are some opportunities for you to save big time on taxes if you structure your sale properly. But that's a whole nother training. So where are you at? 20, 15, 10, 5, score yourself. We got a question. Yeah, all right. What do we got? Minus commissions. Linda, you are so right. And I'm glad you're on the webinar tonight. You are so right. Now get this, when it comes to commissions, we had a sweet deal. And by the way, I'm going to plug these guys. If you're in the Northwest, Consani and Associates, they managed our sale, did a phenomenal job. And the commission was so incredibly fair. And our guy worked his butt off, and he did a great job. Jack was awesome. A retired dentist and now a pastor. I think we were his last transaction, I believe. And he went to pastor, not pasture, but pastor. But Consigning Associates just did a fantastic job. And get this, there were other companies in the Northwest here. Their commissions were double what Consigning was. And I thought Consigning just did a bang up job. Now, granted, we had a great practice to sell. Everything was done. It was ready. It was smoking hot. I mean, it was like a wet dream for a dentist to buy a practice. Everything was ready to go. There's nothing to do. Step in. You don't even have to step in. You could have just left things rolling as they were and never practiced a day and made money. That's what we were doing. So, it was just a beautiful situation. Oh, we got another question. The larger the gross, it is more difficult to get that 15 to 20%. That's Linda's question. Yeah, Linda, you bet. And that's the challenge. So when you've got a practice that's doing 200 grand, 300 grand, 400 grand, $500,000 a month, to get growth in the lines of 25% is almost impossible. It is hard. Now, in a bigger practice, and so I'm kind of tending here more towards the $1 million or so practice. But in those larger practices, Linda, what you're interested in as much as growth is retention. And I think this is where so many people lose their focus. They're so focused on put a new patient in the butt or put a new patient in the chair, and they're not paying attention on the ones that are leaving. Retention in any practice, especially the bigger ones where they have a huge patient base, retention is, I would put as much effort and energy and time into retaining my patients as I would as attracting. So if I have equal efforts, I would put it, I've got a friend in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, big practice. Another one in Madison, 2 big practices. These guys put a lot of energy into retention, high levels of customer service. If somebody leaves the practice, they're making the phone call to ask why. They're constantly in communication, not just sending an email, not just sending a text message, your next appointment is. They are intentionally and actively working their patient base. And that is key. When you get that bigger practice and you got to throw up 10, 15% growth, right? Now, remember, we're talking average practices. 11 said average. So in those extraordinary practices and you want to put up 10, 15% growth, you've got to be focused on retention. You can't afford to lose 15%. Just think about it. If you have 5,000, let's say you have 10,000 patients, and some of our practices that we work with have more than that. If you have 10,000 patients and you lose 15%, that's 1,500 patients. That's 120 some patients a month that you have to replace just from attrition. So now you're looking at 200 new patients a month you got to put in the door just for growth, maybe 250 new patients a month. So those are bigger numbers. That requires investing a lot of time, a lot of energy, and strategy. Strategy becomes key in the marketing side, okay? All right, so let's see. We had another question pop up. So do you have loyalty programs to suggest? We did like Whitening for Life as one. Loyalty programs are important. I think Whitening for Life is one that should be done. I think that can be done in every practice, and frankly, it should be done in every practice. I think there are two others that I'd suggest right here, right now. One is our Dental Healthcare Club. All of our members here at Jerry Jones Direct have access to the Dental Healthcare Club. It's essential. I created this 15 years ago before anybody knew what, a club or a plan and an office plan was. We created it for my own office. And I think that is key to getting patients to stick, is to get them tied into a monthly commitment where they're paying 19 or 29 or 59 or whatever the dollars are per month to stay with your practice, and giving them a financial incentive and getting them used to paying. That's one. Another one is just constant communication. Patients, a huge number of patients leave businesses, practices, clients leave businesses, or customers leave businesses to indifference. That guy doesn't care about me. That gal, that company doesn't give two shits about me. They just don't care. And so I'll take my business somewhere else. That is constantly happening. And it happens way too much in a dental practice. Most dental practices, 95, 97+%, think they've got great customer service when in fact they absolutely suck. Like I said earlier, I'm going to be blunt. I've worked in those practices personally. I've coached those practices. I've advised them. I mean, we used to really be shitty at customer service. We focused and got better. And one of the things you do is just to get better and to retain is to do the right thing and go on above and beyond and do what nobody else is doing. This is business basics. But yeah, Whitening for Life is great. And those are a couple others that I'd absolutely do. There are things in my world that I would not run a practice without doing. Whitening for Life is one of them. Having a club or a plan like the Dental Healthcare Club, offering a periodontal maintenance program for those who are insurance-less. They don't have insurance, but they're on a periodontal maintenance program. You've got to have something for them if you want to maintain them and keep their health. And frankly, why wouldn't you? I mean, it isn't hard. We've got that program, in fact, here at Jerry Jones Direct. Let's see what else. Obviously, just high levels of customer service, high touch, a monthly newsletter. Goes without saying that you should be sending one every single month to the patients that you want to keep. And obviously, you want to keep all your patients. It gives them an opportunity to get behind the curtain in your practice, if you will, because you're not sending them all dental stuff. That'll bore them to death. You want to send them stuff that, they want to know about, like gossip, things that are happening in the practice, just fun stuff. I've got a doctor in Atlanta, and I'll show you his results here in a little bit. His newsletter every month has a column from his dog. I mean, you talk about cool. And what do his patients talk about? Dogs. What do they talk to him about? Dogs. He sells treatment while he's talking about dogs. I mean, he loves his dogs. His patients love dogs. That's what they talk about. That's how you build relationships. You don't build relationships talking about crowns, implants, whitening. You build relationships talking about things people care about. And that's one of the big missing ingredients, I think, in customer service and retention is just that. So, all right, let's go on to immutable law number 3, integrated, established, and proven management systems. This is a biggie. And I'm going to use a franchise example. So I was looking at just a short time ago at purchasing some pizza franchises. They're a take and bake pizza franchise, national. Papa Murphy's is the name of the company. The reason why I love their pizza, number one, and it shows. Number two, they just run a really great business. It's a well-run ship. Customer service is excellent. Their product is excellent. And their profit margins are fantastic. They're just, it's a great company. It'd be a great business to own. So I was looking at buying a number of them, five locations. One of the reasons why I wanted was because the systems were there. I didn't have to learn how to make a pizza. I didn't have to find a place to order my pizza parts from. I mean, everything was ready to roll. I just plugged in and would go. So when you're selling a business, a practice, a dental assisting school, a Pizza Hut, a take and bake pizza, whatever it is, the buyer is buying your systems. They're buying these 4 things that we're talking about. And systems are so key. The better your systems, the better your practice runs. And by the way, your practice should run without you there. When you take your finger out of the pool, there should be no waves. And I'll give you a prime example. When I went in the hospital Tuesday morning, when I passed out and got hauled away, in addition to my life flashing before my eyes, not one time did I think, oh man, what's Jerry Jones Direct going to do? I didn't worry about it. Now, the bad news is I knew the next day I had a webinar scheduled and there was like 55 people registered. I was bummed about that I wouldn't be able to do it. I knew I wouldn't be able to do it because I didn't feel good and I knew something was wrong. The good news is my team stepped in and took care of everything for basically a full week. I didn't even communicate with anybody. There was one person at Jerry Jones Direct that knew something had happened. And my best friend called him from the hospital and said, hey, Kev, Jerry's going to be out for a while. You got to take care of things. And Kevin did. He stepped up, took care of it. My team stepped up and they took care of it. Not a beat was missed. In fact, it probably ran better without me around. If I had had my dental practice when that happened, they would have not known I was in the hospital until I went in and showed them my scar a week or however longer later. They wouldn't have known anything had happened. And the reason why is I was not a necessary ingredient in that dental practice. I started it intentionally that way. And when I sold it, it was that way. That, when we wrap this thing up tonight, is what I want for you. I want you to not be necessary in your practice. So that if something happens to you, to a family member, to a team member, you can step away and go, nobody will miss me. That's when you have good systems. And if you've got that right now, give yourself a 20 because we're going to be scoring this. But I want to talk a little bit more about this. So marketing is a system. You ought to have multiple streams, multiple methods, multiple tactics, strategies, whatever, to attract new patients. That should be systematic. It shouldn't be episodic. In other words, I need them, I got to go do it. It should just happen every month in, month out, month in, month out. It should be boring. You should be disappointed in how boring it is as long as it's putting out new patients. And it should be profitable. You should be able to measure. I spent $2,500. I got back within 90 days, $3,800 from this marketing event. I spent $2,500 on postcards. It brought in $3,800. Here's how you should have a way to track it. That's what your buyer's buying. That is a system. Absent what I just described, you ain't got a system for marketing if you don't know that. Patient intake and continuing care. Is there a system that's written down in a binder in your practice that dictates how new patients are handled from the time the phone rings to the time they show up, what's sent to them, mailed to them, emailed to them, how are they communicated with, what is said, when it's said, and where is it said? New patient walks in the door, what happens? I can walk into 99 out of 100 new practices as a new patient today or tomorrow. Not one of them will be doing the same thing, which is bad in a way. And one of them will give me a tour. One practice will say, hey, Jerry, come on back. I want to show you a little bit about the practice and show you where you're going to be at. And we'll probably meet some folks along the way. Come on with me. Contrast that with, hello, here's some paperwork. Can you fill that out, please? And then bring it up to the counter. Okay. Which place do you want to go? Which place do you have? If you've got the one where it's like, oh, thank you for showing up. Here's your paperwork. Give yourself a 1 if that's your practice. If you've got the, hey, come on in. Let me show you around. Let me take you on a little tour. Here's the restroom, right? Where does every older person want to know when they get to a place? I want to know where the restroom's at, right? Show them. It's so easy. It's so easy. And it takes the discomfort for them having to ask away. Have senior-friendly doorknobs as an example. Handles instead of knobs. Those are little things we did in my practice because we catered a lot to the older folks. And we wanted them to feel comfortable. So give them a tour. That's one system, right? There's dozens of systems, inventory, supply management. Now, this is a big one. About a year before I sold, I had a gal come in, just amazing. Turned out to be a real dud for an employee long-term, but she really knew her stuff when it came to inventory management. In about 3 months, she had my entire inventory turned upside down, inside out, and we were getting rid of stuff left and right. And she said, Jerry, I promise you when I'm done, you're going to save about $2,000 every 3 months on inventory. And I'll be darned if she wasn't spot on. We were blowing and wasting money. Stuff was expiring and we had to throw it out. Now, some of you might be using it. That's your call. I wouldn't, because why would you want to risk something on a $2 tube of crap that's expired, right? You don't, because trust me, where's an attorney going to, these attorneys are brutal, man. They're ruthless. They'll dig into stuff like that. Did you happen to use an expired tube of goop on this patient? Well, yes, we did. Is that a practice you normally encounter? I mean, it just goes bad from there. So hang on one second. So it only gets worse if you do that. So my contention is this: inventory, for example, you should have less than like 2 weeks inventory, 2 weeks at tops inventory on the shelves. Number one, why waste the time, energy, and shelf space? It's probably a better use for it. Number two, why would you put your money up on a shelf so you can't get to it? Why would you stockpile thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in inventory that you can't use? Right? Isn't that funny? I don't like this. I'm wearing this new watch, and she just thought I asked her a question. Ugh, technology. Anyway, this new Apple Watch has got an ECR on it, electrocardiogram thing, and I can measure my heart. Yeah, anyway, that's a whole nother story. How goofy. But my point is, don't put a bunch of money up on the shelf. You want that in your account so you can use it. Just think about the thousands of dollars in inventory you have there that you could just as easily say, hey, instead of letting it sit on the shelf, I'm going to do a marketing campaign. I'm going to hire somebody. I'm going to put that money to work to make money, not sit on a shelf. So inventory is not where you want to have your money sit. Scratchy throat. I haven't talked this much in a long time. Okay. Pardon me for 1 second. Woo. Probably should have had tea. Okay, using Linda, I'll come back to your question here in a second. Probably should have cleared my throat sooner. Okay, so what else do I have here? Gosh, hygiene. What's your reappointment rate? And I apologize for my voice. I'm going to push through this. What's your reappointment rate for hygiene? That's a system. If you're not reappointing 95% or more of existing patients, that's part of that 15% that's leaving. So you cannot afford to ignore, for example, your hygiene systems. Reappointment rates are critical. Here at Jerry Jones Direct, we have a 95% gold standard. So 9.5 out of every 10 people leaving your practice should be reappointing. And if they're not, that's a problem. You got to fix that. A lot of people don't reappoint simply because they don't know why they should. They're not given a reason why they need to return. So that's a big hint. I'm giving you that right now. And that's something, there, my voice is coming back. We just created and released to our members a brand new continuing care system. We call it the Jerry Jones Direct $1 Million Continuing Care System. It's designed to give your practice $1 million annually or more in continuing care. It's a complete system on how your continuing care should operate. And that's one of the big challenges, one of the big flaws that most practices, they'll just say, okay, you're due for your cleaning, in 6 months, here's, fill out this little postcard or we'll send you a text, whatever the case might be, and away that patient goes. They don't realize that there's a reason they should be returning. And so your hygiene team should be documenting a reason why that person should be returning. Doctor wants to check 14, whatever. Doctor is concerned about, doctor wants to monitor, progress of periodontal disease. Whatever the reason, every patient, by the way, leaving needs a reason for returning. If they don't, why the heck should they come back? Right? I mean, look at your car. You have a reason to take your car in. It's got oil change, right? Why wouldn't you give your patients a really solid reason to return every single time? So I'm going to get to the last questions here in a minute that you've posted, Linda, and thank you. I'm sorry, I'm having some issues. Okay. Established proven systems. And let's see here if I have anything else I missed. Training. We can talk a little bit more about that on the next one. And by the way, when a practice transitions from one buyer to another, the likelihood of the entire team staying for any length of time is pretty slim. Even when we sold our practice, 2 of the team left shortly after, and they had worked with this doctor for 18 months. It happens. It just happens. And there's reasons why people do. I'm not going to get into that here, but oftentimes you got to ask yourself, does the buyer want these people, right? They may not want them. You may not want them. So let's rate yourself. Now, so far we've done this. This is our 3rd time. So you could have a potential 60 point or 80 points so far. We've got one more to get a total of 100. We're going to cover one more section. So right now, 60 points is or 80 up to 80 points is where you could be at. Give yourself a 20 if your practice runs itself and you show up when you want. Give yourself a 15 or somewhere in between 15 and 20. Obviously, I'm just giving you the mid number, kind of the easy numbers here. A 15 if your practice runs with your daily input and you're still needed. 10 if you have a few systems, but it won't run without you. Here we go again. Give yourself a 5 if you know you need major systems help. Give yourself a 1 if you have no systems and this really sucks. Okay? So anybody, feel free to chime in here if you want to share where you're at. My concern is if no one's sharing, many of you are concerned at this point. If you are concerned, it's actually a good thing. I mean, this is kind of like an AA meeting where it's like, I got a problem. And I don't mean any disrespect, by the way, in saying that. I'm just saying this is an opportunity for you to go identify that you've got an issue or issues, most likely, and they need to get fixed. They need some attention. Because if you want to sell your practice and you don't have all 4 of these things dialed in, I mean, the bottom line is you're going to take a huge hit, or you're not going to sell your practice, or you're going to just give it away. All right. So let's go to this last one, the bonus law, the people, right? The people are it in your practice. I mean, what you got as a practice is in due in large part to the people that are in it. The systems that are in place, how well people are treated, how smooth things run. It's all due to the people, right? Human capital is a big part of what a buyer is buying. And so you want to make sure that you've got right now the best team that you can possibly get. The better team you have, the more your practice is worth, the more money it's going to throw off for you in the meantime until you sell. So this is crucial. So the big question is, how good is your team? Ask yourself, how good are they? And then ask yourself, would another dentist want my team? Are they trying to poach my people? You got good people if they're constantly getting threat. You're constantly under the threat of being poached. Where your people are going to be stolen and given and going to another practice. That means you got a good group of people. What about this is a big question? Would you rehire them? Every one of the people in your office right now, would you rehire them? Yes? No? Maybe? If you're buying your practice, would you want them? You got DAs, front office, hygienists, doctors maybe. Do you want all the ones you got? So the obvious question is, if you don't have the ones you want, why in the hell do you have them? Why not replace them? Upgrade, right? Now let's talk about training these people. Most dentists, train their team one time. Mary, here's how I want the phone answered. And then they walk away and they never talk again about how the phone is answered, yet they bitch, whine, moan, and complain when the phones aren't answered properly. When someone like me calls and says, by the way, nobody's answering your phone. Or by the way, when I called, some lady yelled at me for calling. Nobody likes that. But here's the deal. Anything that happens in your practice that's good or bad, if it happens and it's bad, it's your fault. If it happens and it's good, it's not your fault. It's not yours to take credit for. That runs contrary to some of the things that seem to be happening in politics these days. But anything bad that happens in your practice is your fault. And it's your fault because of training, right? If you think about training and how important and how repetitive and boring it is, how necessary it is, think about your kids. I've got 2 kids. I can't tell you how many times I told them to brush their teeth after they ate breakfast and before they went to bed. I'm not the kind of dad that said, brush your teeth after lunch. I mean, I'm a nerd, but I ain't that big of a nerd. Not that that's nerdy. You get my point. But how many times do we have to tell our kids to do things the right way? That's training. That's called parenting, AKA training. Your team really isn't any different. They're not children, but they need to have their training reinforced over and over and over and over and over and over. It never ends. The challenge is most of us think it should, but it shouldn't ever end. And if it doesn't end, we have a far better team. If we stop training, our team's capabilities just plummets. And pretty soon you've got what's called a donor practice. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you have to have a leadership team in place. When you're selling your practice, you should have a leadership team, a front office team leader, a back leader. There should be somebody in charge of each segment, a hygiene lead, and then maybe you have an office manager. And those different leads all report to the office manager, or they report to you, the doctor, whatever the case might be, however your practice is set up. But the more people you have in your practice, the bigger your practice, the more people you're going to need involved in your leadership team. Leadership is key. No leadership in your practice is worth poop. I'll be blunt. I told you I would be. No leadership, crappy practice. Great leadership, awesome practice. The two go hand in hand. One without the other, you got poop. So how's your leadership? How are your skills? When was the last time you were trained on leadership? Never? Last week? 2 years ago? 10 years ago? 20 years ago? Maybe you went through the military. You got leadership training in the military. This is big. This is really big. Leadership is the difference between having a killer practice, one that just makes money hand over fist, and one that, is anemic, barely grows, nobody's interested. It's just kind of there, So rate yourself 1 to 20. 1 to 20. So this is where you have your potential 100 points. A 20 is I have all 10s and they rock. 15, I have mostly 10s, but they need leadership and or training. 5, I have 1 or 2 decent people. Need some major help. 1, I have no 10s and this sucks. Rate yourself. See where you're at. Got them all added up? It's kind of fun, isn't it? Kind of fun. But only you know where you're at right now, because nobody has been brave enough to volunteer their number. And by the way, if you send it to just me, a panelist, I'm the only panelist. So if you want to send a message in the webinar chat to just me and give me your number, that's cool. I won't share it if you don't want me to. You can say, hey, share it or not. I mean, if you're at 90 to 100, man, I want to know, because you're doing a lot of stuff right. You're kicking ass and taking names. All right. So let's run through the score and see how you did. Let's grade your paper, okay? Let's calculate your score and how you did on your short quiz. Take your initial score you gave yourself. Remember when we started, I said, rate yourself on how well on your practice right now as it rated itself, 1 to 20. Okay, that was the first question. Then we had 4 other questions, 1 in each of the immutable laws to include our bonus law. So if you scored 90 to 100 points, you get an A. Congratulations, you have a professional business. You've got a business. You've got more than a practice, you've got a business. And that's what I want for you. I want you in the 90 to 100 range. I want you to have a business, not just a practice. So your practice, frankly, should sell for close to top dollar. The other question is maybe it's time to replicate it. If you're scoring 90 to 100 and you're not in your practice, you're not seeing every single patient, you've got associates and you're just doing your thing and you're having a great time, maybe it's time to replicate. Maybe not. It's a quality of life question. It's what do you want out of life? Do you want 20 offices to sell to a DSO, or do you want 1 to sell to a solo guy? What do you want? It's all up to you. It's your choice. 80 to 89 points, you get a B. You've got a professional practice. This is what most dentists have, is a professional practice. I say not bad, my friend, but there's areas for opportunity to address and polish and get you up to that A, to having a professional business. Why not just have a professional practice? Why not? Hey man, I got nothing against having a professional practice. Here's what I have against the concept of a professional practice. If you leave, that practice is dead. If you're not there, it dies. If you have a significant health event, if you lose your eyesight, if you have to have heart ablation after heart ablation after heart ablation, if you're in the hospital for any length of time, your practice takes a crap and it is a bitch to recover because the overhead does not stop. The overhead keeps accumulating. And if you've got disability insurance, cool. But I got news for you. It doesn't kick in for 90 days. And even then, most don't have $10,000 a month policies to pay for your personal overhead. And most of you have personal overheads that exceed $10,000 a month. A $10,000 a month life disability policy would get me by. That's it. It'd get me by. And I think that's the intention, is to get you by. But I don't want you to have a professional practice. I want you to have a professional business. And if you want to sell it for top dollar, more than 70%, you've got to have an A. You got to be scoring an A. So what if you got a C? 70 to 79 points. Basically, you got to start a practice. That's okay, but you got to recognize where you're at and what it's going to take to get it to an A. You've got an opportunity to improve and increase the value, And frankly, the next steps you take, and what I mean by next steps, I mean like tomorrow, tonight preferably, the next steps are critical. They're gonna determine your future. If I can't get through to you tonight on this training that where you're at right now is not ideal for you, for your family, for your practice, for your future, for your retirement, if I can't get through right now to you, who in the hell is going to get through? Who? I don't know. So 69 points or less, you failed, you got a donor practice. And a donor practice is you're donating all your patients to everybody else. You're not taking advantage of the opportunity that you have that a dental license gives you. You've got the same opportunity as every other dentist. You have the abilities and the capabilities. You just need the drive and the people to be at an A. So if you're at that 69 or less, you failed. Not even a D. I don't give Ds. I just go right to Fs. So let's get those spelling salts out. And I mean, if you try to sell that bad boy, you're going to take a fraction of, you're going to take 50% of that 70%. So if for some miracle of God, you're collecting 700 grand or a million a year, you know, but your practice is a piece of poop and it's a donor practice and you're just running people through there left and right, you might get 400 or 500 if you're lucky, as opposed to 700, 800 or more. Okay. So that's the score. How'd you do? Are you happy? Are you confident? How do you feel right now? Feel a little beat up, a little discouraged? I don't want you to feel discouraged, but being beat up is okay. But I don't want you to get discouraged because there's more than one way to skin this cat. And I don't want you to worry about that part. I don't want you to feel like this is hopeless, as it's not. Okay? All right. So what does your score mean, you know, for your future? Well, frankly, I mean, it means if you're the master of your practice or not. That's really what it means. You know, you got to understand that people are buying, you know, a buyer wants to buy a practice that's in good condition, that has opportunity. It's got systems. It's got demonstrated deal flow. It's got great people in it who are trained, right? I mean, that's what people want. When you're buying a business, that's what you should be seeking as well. You should not be seeking necessarily a piece of junk unless you're a rehabber. And that's fine. I know docs that are rehabbers. They buy the Fs, they buy the failures, and they turn them around and they make a ton of dough. I've said this for years. There are doctors that I can take a failing practice, and if I put the right doctor and the right people in it, it'll turn it around in months, not years, months. I can also take the doctor that was in that failing practice and put him in a practice that's just kicking butt, taking names and setting records every single month, and that practice will turn around into an F in no time. Commonality, the doc. That doctor does not want to recognize they're the problem, and they need to. I mean, that's really kind of where we get here. That's what we get to. All right, so let's move on here. If you the higher your score, the more liquid your small cap company, your practice, right? The lower your score, the more difficult it's going to be to sell. If your score is not at that 90 and up, what are your options? What are your next steps to change it? If you're not happy with your score and you need a hand, if yours is a professional or startup or a donor practice, man, think back to the beginning of this training, right? How ready is your practice? How does it compare now that we've kind of delved into it a little bit? Does it need help? Do you need some help? Right? If you need it, you're in the right place. I mean, I know you're going to be shocked, amazed, and completely blown away, but by golly, I've got a solution for you. It's called the Jerry Jones Direct Advisory Program. And what is it? It's on your screen here. And for those that are dialed in by phone, I'll read it. It's exactly what I said, an advisory program designed to get you from where you are now to where you want to go. It's all based on this code diagnosis that we just completed together. It's done by a proven pathway that I've used not just in dental practices, but other businesses as well. This is proven. It just works. It works every time. But before I share what's involved in the advisory, I've got a little note here on the screen you can read. It's from my friend David Stahl. He's been a member for a long time. He's reacting to my recent pacemaker implant experience. And I want you to focus on, I mean, really the big thing here is, you know, your experience has made me think hard about what I do every day, and I'm contemplating more changes because of it. David's a smart guy. He's taking my experience and he's translating it to what it means to him. He says at the end here, I just want you to know that I truly appreciate what you've done for me in the past and only wish you and your family always the best. Very kind note. That's what David just said here recently. I've got a little audio here. For those of you that won't recognize the voice, I'll tell you, it's my friend Dan Kennedy. It's a very brief little thing here. I'll play it for you. Here's what Dan had to say. Oops. Here's what Dan had to say.
Jerry Jones and we've worked together off and on. And Jerry knows more probably about driving people into an office, specifically with newsletters and with direct mail and FSIs as well, than just about anybody on the planet. So
that's Dan. If you know Dan Kennedy, heard of him or whatever, I mean, those are quite the kudos from the man himself. There's a couple of notes from Ken Murphy. Ken's in Atlanta, Georgia. He went from 91 comprehensive exams in 2017 to 118 in 2018. He started working with us in 2018, as a matter of fact. His production in 2018 increased 21% over 2017, and he more than doubled his Invisalign cases. Those are some of the those are just normal results from Jerry Jones Direct for the docs that dive in and want to go. So some questions you might be thinking about. Why now, Jerry? Why are you qualified to take me to the next level? So as I mentioned earlier, I just experienced what I would consider to be an emotionally charged heart health event. I mean, when I say emotions, I'm still affected by it a little bit. Just a couple weeks ago, it's caused me to frankly reprioritize what I do on a daily basis and what's important. The thing is, I was very, very lucky. My practice, Jerry Jones Direct, was ready and prepared, and I want yours to be the very same in the event that something unexpected takes you by surprise. Or the DSOs come to you knocking and they want to buy. Is your practice ready to sell for top dollar? So what can you expect as an outcome as an advisory member? The outcome is frankly based on your own personal goals. It's your own unique situation. My priority in the advisory is to give you the tools, the perspective, the coaching, the advice to get you there. Now, keep in mind, I've done this multiple times. I've done it, frankly, for the last year with one hand tied behind my back, low heart rate or low BP. So this isn't anything new to me. I've done it. How much does it cost? Great question. It's embarrassingly cheap. In fact, I had a difficult time with this, as I've never sold any advice or advisory service ever, any coaching service of any kind ever at this low of a price, ever. And I probably never will again. So let's look at this. So another question you might be having is, I'm already involved in coaching and consulting. I'm already in another program. Okay, cool. If you're already in another program, that's great. We all need coaches. As I've written here, I've got 3. I'm in 2 masterminds. But the question I have for you is this, and this is an important question. Why did you choose to tune into this webinar? What about the topic, the man giving this training? And what have I covered that maybe is missing or lacking from the program you're in right now? Like everything that I've ever done in dentistry, there isn't, frankly, another individual that's done or doing what I do or what we can do here. Our experience, my experience is frankly just unmatched. There isn't anyone in dentistry like doing what we do and what I've done. As a member of my advisory, you're literally tapping into my 20 plus years of experience, my mistakes, my screw ups, my wins, massive transformations that I get to move to you through experience. The thing is, you don't have all the time to make all the mistakes I've made, and I don't have all the time to make the mistakes that others have had. That's why I'm in masterminds. That's why I'm part of that's why I'm coached. It's frankly why you need to be coached, right? You don't have the time to make all the mistakes. And if you're age 60 or you're age 55 and you've got anything other than a practice, if you've got anything other than a business and you've got just a professional practice or a startup or a donor practice, you don't have the luxury of time. You just don't. Like I said, I'm going to be frank. You don't have it. So what does this advisory program look like? It's on the screen here in front of you for those that are joining us by phone. I'll read it. We start out with an initial discovery session. It's 60 minutes in length. For those of you that know, I do seriously bill out $1,875 an hour. It's $15,000 a day. This initial session is worth $1,875. We're going to do 2 30-minute calls each and every month, just you and me, mano a mano. That's where I'll diagnose, troubleshoot, and find the solutions to your challenges and identify opportunities and help you identify those challenges and opportunities. That's an $1,875 monthly value. I'm going to spend an hour with you, 30 minutes twice a month. You're going to get my newsletter. It's like a dental business MBA in print. That's $199 a month value. I've been writing that newsletter. I think I'm at issue 130 some right now, which means I've written 130 issues and we're still going strong. Quarterly group calls. This is big. I mean, when you have the opportunity to get on a call with 3, 4, 5, 6 other doctors, and you have a chance to listen to their challenges, and you can offer them input, and they listen to your challenges, and they offer input for you. It's like a little mini mastermind. Plus, we're gonna have some special guests that I've lined up already for these quarterly group conference calls. You also get emergency 911 support from me. You'll have direct access to a private email, which I'll monitor first and most often. It's what I'll look at first every day. It's what I'll look at last before I go to bed. I owe that to you. I want to share my experiences to keep you from dealing with what I've had to deal with in practice, in quotation marks. For gold members, that was all silver. So for gold members, we're also going to hold 3 mastermind meetings with me and fellow advisory members in one of 3 cities, Salem, Portland, or Seattle. That's gold only. Silver by invitation. An additional charge applies. That's a $997 a month value. Also, gold members get access to and license to everything I've created, to include the Jerry Jones Direct $1 Million Continuing Care System. And well over $50,000. It's probably closer to $75,000, $80,000, $90,000 worth of systems that you can bolt onto your practice. Literally, just bolt on. One of those I talked about is the Dental Healthcare Club. This is like bolt-on stuff. That's a $600 a month value. Plus, you get copies of all my recent books and an advanced copy of my book coming out in late this year, The 33 Immutable Laws to Buying or Selling a Dental Practice. And you get free admittance to a $3,000 event. This is a legitimate $2,995 event that's going to take place in September. That's called the Dental Success Blueprint. You get access to that as a gold member. So here's what we're looking at. I'm going to summarize the value here. I mean, go figure. Silver, $27,000 annually. Gold, $49,000 annually. If you want to break it down into monthly, it's $2,200 for silver, $4,100 for gold. All right. But like I said, this is not your typical advisory where we're going to be charging you $2,200 a month. I mean, it's just not. So by acting now, you can secure your spot in my advisory. It's not only going to save you tens of thousands of bucks, legitimate bucks off regular pricing. You can start now to go from wherever you're at on that scale, whatever your grade is now, to get to that A. So here's where we're at. So from now until April 1st, new advisory members can submit an application for approval. And upon acceptance, you get a huge discount. Silver, $297 app fee, $297 first month. So your first month is $594 for silver. It's $597 a month thereafter. Now keep in mind, this is one-on-one calls with me, 2 of them every month, 30 minutes each. That's an hour of my time each month working on your practice. That's a huge value. $597 a month. Gold, the same app fee, $297, the same first month, $297. It's $897 a month thereafter. So gold is $300 more a month, but you saw what you get. This is what you get for gold. You get the mastermind meetings, 3 of them. You get access to everything I've created for Jerry Jones Direct and for my practice, all of it. The continuing care system and about a dozen other bolt-on systems for your practice. You get my books and you get free admittance to the Dental Success Blueprint for $897 a month. Now, it's obviously the savings are tremendous. $20,000 savings for silver, $38,000 savings over retail price for gold. So it only applies to the first 15 people. That's the challenge. So you got to be among the first 15 to apply. I can't promise how long I'm going to keep up this price as low as it is. It's a tremendous bargain for those that recognize that change is required, an upgrade in strategy is required, and in fact your answer. So my goal is to get a great group of docs who want to grow, they want to improve, they want to prepare their practices for sale, or they want to prepare their practice to be one of several. They want to acquire practices. So of note, once I reach 50, total of 50 doctors in my advisory program, I'm stopping accepting new members unless I need to replace one. I'm just going to stop. 50 is all I want. $597 a month for silver, $897 gold. Your first month is $594. It's $297 app fee, $297 for your first month. This is the summary. We got the discovery session. That's a 60-minute discovery session, $1,875 value. We're going to do 2 30-minute phone calls each month. So one-on-one personal calls with me. You're going to get my Practice Profit Insider, my Dental Business MBA in print, quarterly group conference calls, 3 mastermind meetings. You're going to get access, if you're gold, you're going to get access to all of my copyright and trademark protected systems, the bolt-on systems for your practice. You're going to get copies of my books, including my brand new one. And gold also gets free admittance to the 2019 Dental Success Blueprint. That's a $3,000 value. You also get emergency 911 support from me, silver or gold. Either one. You have direct access to a private email, which I'll monitor first and most often. Okay? So you have a full 30 days of working with me to decide if the advisor is for you. If at any time during the first 30 days you're unhappy for any reason, just say so. We'll stop. No big deal. You're not under any further obligation. You got 30 days to test drive. You must be 100% thrilled, or you don't have to be a part of it. And you got 30 days to figure that out. In the first 30 days, we're going to make some huge headway. I guarantee, in fact, in that first 30 days to identify savings of at least whatever level you decide to come in at, silver or gold. So effectively, your advisory shouldn't cost you a penny. In fact, it should be making you a ton of dough. And remember, you've got to be 100% thrilled. You have the first 30 days to decide if it's for you or not. So you have no risk. So the next steps, this is the easy part. If you didn't like your score tonight, if you were under that, threshold of 90 points and you want to, or if you're at 90 and you just want to, you want to be that elite Olympic athlete and get to 100, then this is your opportunity. If you're anywhere below that 90, you've got to do something. The writing's on the wall. If it's not me, it's going to be somebody. And I don't think there's another individual qualified to get you where you need to go that's going to give you the kind of one-on-one attention that I can give you. So go right now to jjdadvisory.com. You're going to see a very plain looking webpage. You're going to download a PDF file and you're going to fill out an application. This is by application only. So jjdadvisory.com. I'm going to personally review each and every one of those applications and approve them or not. Somebody that applies may not be suitable. I may not be able to help. I'm only going to accept those I can help. And I know I can help. So jjdadvisory.com. I'm going to be sending you an email when I wrap this up. And that email will have the application or a link to the application as well. But I want you to go to JJD Advisory right now, download it, and fill your application out and get it in. It's ridiculously inexpensive. There isn't anything else anywhere where you're going to find this kind of support for this price. There just is not. Every dentist that's on this webinar tonight can afford this. There is not a single one that cannot. So if you choose to not pursue it, either you've decided that I'm an ass and I just can't help you, or you just don't have enough belief in yourself to push through and accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. I believe it's going to be an easy decision for you. I don't want you to have what happened to me disrupt your life. If you have a sudden cardiac event, if you're like my friend Joe, who's going through multiple heart ablations, if you are like one of our members in Indiana who's lost eyesight in one of his eyes and can't practice. The stories just go on and on. Or my friend Lou, who didn't make it off the operating table because of some stupid mistake. Why wouldn't you do this? You have nothing to lose. This is the easiest decision you're ever going to make in growing your practice. And like I said, I can't promise, excuse me, how long I'm going to keep it at this price because it's a bargain. It's an absolute bargain. So go to jjdadvisory.com and download the application. Fill it out. Get it back to me as soon as you can. The first 15 are admitted at this price. The first 15 only. So go ahead and take care of that now. I am happy to take questions for those of you that have stuck it out. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and we can get those questions all taken care of. I've pretty much answered, I think, all of them, including Linda's very last one. And so if you've got them, go ahead and put them in the chat box or hit the Q&A box. It's your choice. Either one works, and I'll be here for a few more minutes, certainly, until these questions are answered. In the meantime, jjdadvisory.com. Look, you nail these 4 laws. I mean, the bottom line is your practice is going to be worth a heck of a lot more than it is today. But you've got to nail these 4. I mean, these are the 4 major requirements in order for you to sell a practice at top dollar. They are the immutable laws for your success. And so you've got to just do it. You've got to get going. If you're deep in debt, you don't have any savings and you're hit with an event like I was hit with, or any of the events like I talked about with some of our other members, one of our Jerry Jones Direct team members lost a best friend, 42 years old, massive heart attack, keeled over and died. I mean, this stuff's just happening all the time, and you don't know. I thought I was in damn good health. I really did. But turns out wasn't so. I hit the shower floor and that was all she wrote. I don't want that to happen to you, and not have a practice that's in that is ready to roll without you. That's what I want for you. So go to jjdadvisory.com and take care of this application and get it in. And we can get you cranked up and going. I want you to have a business that operates whether you're there or not. It puts money in your bank account whether you're there or not. That's what a practice, a real true practice, a professional practice business should do for you. So let's get that done. And by the way, if you're an associate, don't worry about that. Man, I've got the absolute most amazing system to attract associates, and I used it time and time again. So don't worry about finding people. That's just something you got to do. I mean, you need to do that whether you're going to, add an associate or sell someday. You got to find the right person. But we've got that system nailed down. It's in place. The associate partner recruiting system. I mean, this baby's worth 30 grand. By the way, that's what it can cost you to recruit a dentist from a headhunter. It could be up to $30,000 if you want to recruit a specialist from a headhunter. It's big bucks. I've got that system for you. I created it because I needed to. I didn't have a choice. I mean, I couldn't do dentistry. I'm not a dentist. And so we always had to have a dentist in the office if we were to make money. And believe me, I got caught a couple of times with my pants down, not having a dentist in that practice. Excuse the rather crude comparison or analogy, if you will. But I got caught not having a doc in that practice more than once. And so I solved that problem, and we solved it with the associate partner recruiting system. So that's the system you get. It's part of this whole deal. I didn't have time to go into all that. So that's where we're at. Questions, comments, it's like I said, $297 for your first month, $297 app fee. From there on out, it's either $597 a month for silver or it's $897 a month for gold. It's just a flat out bargain no matter what. So jump on it. Go to jjdadvisory.com, download your application, get it filled out, and get it into me as fast as possible because I want you to be among the first 15. So I don't see any questions popping up. Think about your score. I mean, if you're wondering, is this for me? Is this not for me? What was your score? I mean, if you don't have a 95 to 100, you can use some help. You really can use some help. And I would be honored to give it to you. I'd be honored to see you just skyrocket. I think that would be the best thing ever. But you got to do something. The decision time is here. You've got the facts in front of you. You self-scored. You know where you're at. So now it's just up to you. So jjdadvisory.com. I'm going to wrap it up. I don't see any more questions. I appreciate each and every one of you being on here tonight. Thank you for the well wishes. And may your evening be a fantastic one. Your weekend be a great one. And I hope to see your application come on in and we get you into this program and get you started on the path to where it is you want to go. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a fantastic evening, and we'll catch up with you soon. See you later.